action. What the heck's gonna happen, you know?
It was just like that. It was just all or nothing. And it was always all, like just boom.
I can only, it just reminds me in listening to everyone talk of the birthing process. It's almost like we're birthing these scenes.
I think I wet my pants. I think I peed myself.
There we go. That's the soundbite we're looking for.
I know, yeah.
That's it. That's our
It's a
program.
wrap.
That's the
It's a
soundbite.
wrap.
Welcome to Entertainment Weekly's Around Across the Table with Matrix Resurrections.
That was great.
We all immediately blow out our mics.
The film and the experience for nostalgia in the film is comforting, but I think it's also confrontational in the sense of what is nostalgia. Yes, it can give comfort, but it can also ask questions. Where I was in the past and now here I am. How did I get here? How do I feel about the past? And being a Matrix film, it's like, did the past even happen? But, so I would say comforted, and it was amazing, and also a little bit of anxiety. Just some of the questions in the film of is your nostalgia memory, what is it contextualizing is, and especially being a Matrix film, was it real? What did it mean? And it deals with the past and the present also in a kind of age aspect. So, you know, closer to death. But anyway, but enough about that.
Set and setting, right?
Oh, no.
It's all about set and setting.
After our first contact went so badly, we thought elements from your past might help ease you into the present.
Nothing comforts anxiety like little nostalgia.
Definitely in playing a character and portraying Morpheus, it was my job, you know, not to give a literal impersonation of Lawrence Fishburne's performance as Morpheus, but to understand that history. You know, I was fortunate enough to play a character who was aware of the history of the Matrix, but also growing into his own, you know, and he had a sort of a growth and a rebirth to go through for his own self. And so to me, I looked at that as an opportunity to be, you know, to create a character with some freedom and expression and to really find out what it was that I, as Morpheus, liked about myself and what I had to contribute to the world and what I had to say in this universe. And, you know, that was something that I really enjoyed. But in terms of looking back, for myself, that was an opportunity to, you know, to learn more about the world and also to, you know, pay homage to the performance that Lawrence Fishburne presented to us, and then to really add on to that in my own way.
I did rewatch it, but I didn't need to because the original really imprinted itself on my mind. It's one of the few films which I think I remember scene for scene. I was too young to watch it, and I shouldn't have watched it, and it scarred me. I was terrified of the mouth. I was terrified of my mouth getting stitched, and I was terrified of the idea that a belly button was an orifice. That had never occurred to me. So yeah, when I did rewatch it, but I didn't need to when I was watching it. I was like, yeah, it's exactly what I remember. It's terrifying.
As terrifying as that. Coming on to a movie which had the legacy that it did was very exciting in any case, and being on the playground with all of these people was amazing, but also to take on the responsibility of a character that was a really little girl when, you know, she was spoken about in the last movie. She was left in a foreshadowing kind of way of what her role might be in Neo and Trinity's journey. So it was really fun to sort of work with Lana to build what Sati would be as a grown-up and what her purpose would be in the larger scheme of things. And of course, as an actor, that's the best part, is to develop a character. And that was a lot of fun for me.
I rewatched the movies a lot, and I had them kind of playing in the hotel room. Like when I would get home from fight training, I would put on the movies and I would listen to Hugo Weaving. And when I first got cast, I really couldn't understand why exactly. As the process went along, I understood that this was a new program and a new version of Smith. And this made me feel free, and Lana's process is very creative. And so, like Yahya, I felt like I got to make it my own, do something completely different than Hugo Weaving. But I'm obsessed with Hugo Weaving. I say some of the same lines as he does in the film. So there's like YouTubes of him like saying Mr. Anderson over and over again, like cut together. So I would go to bed watching those.
Wow.
And I would go to bed watching his scenes just to sort of have them in my subconscious. But on the day, Lana's process for all of us is very in the moment, and we never really rehearsed, and we kind of built it as it went along, which was part of what made it so thrilling.
We can't see it, but we're all trapped inside these strange repeating loops.
Billions of people just living out their lives, oblivious.
I mean, it's not like we didn't ever rehearse. We would kind of like sometimes come to a scene and
Say lines, maybe.
well, not all the time, but we would kind of know the room and kind of hang out a little bit. But yeah, it wasn't necessarily all the time rehearsing. It was exciting, and especially with Lana, because she would say, "You learn by doing," and I was like, "Yeah, I guess you do." And but it also made something else kind of exciting too. Was for me, I live for that moment after the director says action, and it really amplified that moment. I love action. What the heck's gonna happen? You know, you can prepare and you can have your ideas and stuff, but after someone says action, you don't really know, and you want to be whatever that is. So I'm really grateful for that gift that she shared with me, and I think we would all kind of say, I don't want to speak for you, but it was awesome.
Kind of reminds me of birth, when you give birth. She creates this space, and everyone is doing all of this work, right? There's this energy of her like the room is preparing for it to start, and then once action gets called, it's like a whole other world opens. And it just reminds me in listening to everyone talk of the birthing process. It's almost like we're birthing these scenes in the moment without any preconceived idea of how it's going to be. As an actor, for me anyway, it's so exciting to be in that creative space that she creates with all the other artists that are helping to create all those things for us then to step in and be free enough to let go. And that's what I think was so phenomenal about that experience, because it's hard to trust that and to just really take in the other. It's not that it's hard, but to trust enough to just take in the other person, trust that you're gonna know what to do and that it's gonna go in a direction that your mind hasn't gone, okay, I'm gonna do this and this and this and this.
Trust yourself too.
Yeah, it's
to
so-
be able to be like, will I, at least for me coming in and out, will I be able to do it?
Yeah, it's exciting.
I'd never really worked with a director like Lana, who I've never worked with someone who doesn't like rehearsal and is so fluid. She does walk into a room and she looks at the natural light and everything felt live. They would set up and they'd be shooting Keanu and then he'd say his line and it's like, Yahya had the next line, and so you assume the camera's going to go there, and then suddenly you realize the camera has spun around and it's on you, and you just had to be ready at all times. But I really tried to give myself over to the process in a way which I hadn't before. Usually I'm quite protective of my characters, but I realized going into this, like, Lana's been living with this world longer than any of us, and she knows it, and I just gave myself over to be a vessel for whatever she wanted.
Yeah, this one was a bit different for me in the sense that, you know, on the larger movies that I had done, it was a lot about hitting your mark, turning into the camera, getting your angles, kind of looking cool with a cool line delivery and things like that. And that's an art in and of itself. But this one wasn't like that, and it's a huge scale movie, obviously, and with the action and the really cool moments. But a lot of those moments were created out of freedom and sort of out of the very loose structure. So we didn't have very strict blockings or intonations on the line delivery and things like that. So we were free to play and explore and not necessarily have to do 2 and 3 takes the same way each time. Or sometimes we were free to even go back to the top and just try it again, you know, in a different way. So in that sense, it was very familiar. I think maybe because of my theater training, you know, my theater background or some of the other projects that I had done that didn't necessarily call for the guideline of following such strict rules. So, you know, in that way, I was able to find a lot of freedom and, you know, and the freedom to, you know, to play on the day.
I was just scared.
You had a lot to say.
I was just trying to survive.
Yeah,
I was like,
good,
I just want to keep my head above water at this point. But it was a lot of words, and a lot of my work was in front of all of them, and me just spewing words and them just pretending to listen. But I think, I think it was, Lana is very, very specific, like Jess said, about, you know, what she wants and what she wants her characters to be. And she's so clear that by the time you go in, you know exactly what you're supposed to do and what's expected of you. So for me, it was broken down and made so compact into exactly tonally what, you know, she wanted me to feel and she wanted to convey in the scene through me. So it was as terrifying as it was also such a joy to be able to just like kind of, you know, be thrown into this live electric environment and then just do the thing that you have to do and deliver.
It's funny you say that about about how clear she was, because sometimes I go in with a question and then we talk for 10 minutes and
Yeah,
I turn
more
around and I'm
questions.
like, golly, I just wish I didn't go ask, because now I'm even more confused than I was, you know, before I went in.
When I was doing the scenes, she was very clear, but once I made the mistake of during BTS, they were like, oh, I want you to talk about your character. And I was like, you know, I'm not screwing this one up, so I'm not gonna get anything wrong. So I called Dana, she was in an edit, and I was like, you know, just what would you like me to say about Sati? And she spoke to me for 20 minutes and I had no idea what she said.
Wow.
I had no clue. I was so much more confused when I went in.
No, I remember trying to pin her down a few times to talk about bugs, and then I very quickly gave up. And I was like, every time I ask, she's gonna talk about life instead. I realized that she just didn't, she never wanted to feed, except when
Yeah,
I was on
that's it.
set. When I was on set, it was very specific. But
Exactly.
And she never wanted you to go home and rehearse and prep.
Yeah.
And
But
I
she
do
wanted
remember-
the live environment.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was day one with you, and we were running lines, and bless you, you had like 10 pages, you killed it. But she heard us running lines, and she came over and she was like, what is this, the theater? And I never ran lines on set again.
Where are we?
Tokyo. A moving portal makes it harder to track us. Seeker's the best of them.
Portal's clean. Reading no shadows.
I don't remember this.
We don't have to run to phone booths anymore either.
Jess's story just reminded me that, because I scream Mr. Anderson and shoot the gun, and I was watching these videos of Hugo saying Mr. Anderson, and I knew that she didn't want me to do an impression of him or try to recreate. But I was in the hotel room and I was like, am I gonna practice screaming this? Or you know, what do I do? And so I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna trust this thing of, I'm not gonna over rehearse this, and I'll just show up on the day and I'll pick up the gun and I'll do the screaming and see what comes out. And the water came down in the scene and you're over crawling around on the thing. Yep. I pick up the gun and I scream and I shoot. And it was such an out of body experience. And when it was over, I don't know if you remember me talking to you about this.
I do
You
recall, sir.
When it was over, I was like, I think I wet my pants. I think I peed myself because I had this, you know, when you pee yourself and you feel that like hot urine. And I was like, I think I shot this.
I know, yeah.
That's it. That's our
It's a
promo.
wrap. It's a wrap. We got everything we needed.
Promo
But then
moment.
it didn't go away because when you pee yourself, it's like hot for a second and then it gets cold and then it's chafing. And so I was like, it like sustained. So then I thought that maybe one of the shells from the gun had come down my shirt, which they warn you might happen.
Yeah.
And you know, dangerous things can happen if that. And so then I was like reaching down there looking for the shell, but it wasn't down there. But for like 10 minutes, I had this heat emanating from my groin. And I asked you about it. Do you remember this?
Oh, what was your response?
I remember you telling me that this happened, but I don't remember you asking me.
I asked both of you actually, and you were like, I think maybe you opened up your root chakra.
Yeah, that
That like the gun
Yeah.
and the primal thing. And then I asked you about it, Carrie Ann, and you were saying like sometimes your body doesn't know it's not real.
Yeah. Whenever I shoot a gun, I can look really cool in a scene, but afterwards, it's like my body doesn't know that it's not real. It's very intense.
Yeah.
Unless you're really experienced and you've kind of gone beyond, you know, I think you've done so much of it, you know, you've gone beyond that point. But for me, it's like, it's really intense.
Yeah.
And my body has a physical reaction.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember. So you didn't pee your pants. Just to make it clear,
I
he
was
did not
wet,
pee his pants.
but I didn't pee my
He
pants.
didn't pee his
Yeah.
pants.
The most important choice in Neo's life is not his to make.
She believed in me. It's my turn to believe in her.
Part of me feels like I have been waiting my whole life for you.
If you want to see Trinity again, fight for her! I was able to, I think, follow the script, and the script told me that I was playing a guy who was aware of Morpheus and even a bit tongue-in-cheek in referencing how serious Morpheus was. And so it gave me sort of a guideline to, at times, to go in the opposite direction of what that was. And, you know, like I referred to, he was also discovering for the first time his own self, his own abilities. You know, he's existing in a world where he doesn't have the same limitations as he had in a previous life. So he's sort of been reborn as this guy who is also named Morpheus and who has a very specific responsibility. But you know, he's on a journey to figure out who he is and how he exists in the world. And that includes, you know, the way that he speaks, the way that he walks, and his fashion, his choice of suits, and his choice of glasses. And so, but I also did want to make sure that I was purposeful, you know, and I think that was the point of going back and watching the films and really understanding Morpheus's journey and understanding the importance of that character, you know, so that I could also carry that, you know, with me. But I also tried not to overburden myself as an actor and as a performer with that. You know, I chose to say yes to the job, and now, you know, I made it my job to then go and to create a character, to stick by him, and to, you know, to have some fun in the following exploration. You know,
For me, you know, playing the same character but playing the older adult version of her gave me a lot of freedom to be able to create something that was new and not have sort of the burden of, you know, playing a character which was developed completely. But it was really fun to, at least in the physicality, like even with the hair that we did, to kind of have references to young Sati. So we, you know, created, like even the clothes, we treated her like a warrior, but at the same time had an homage to her Indian roots. We used colors which were Indian. We had like borders of saris and little details which were so amazing and so well done by the team that as soon as I put it on, there was something very sacred about, you know, who I became. And Lana that was something that she spoke to me about the older version of Sati and where she comes into play with Neo and Trinity's journey. So I think there was a burden and a responsibility of living up to the expectation of what and who she would be as an adult, but at the same time, I didn't have, you know, the responsibility of whether it's going to, but am I going to be like her or not? So it was a lot of creative interpretations which I had, which was really fun and challenging to do.
I watched a lot of Hugo. It was clear in the script, sort of from the first scene where I'm Thomas Anderson's business partner. This was like the energy I'd sort of started working with. But when we started, it was a great mystery to me. I didn't know what it was going to be like or how I was going to play it. My costume fitting was a big part of it. Like I put on where I'm in a costume in The Matrix for the first time, and it was like, you walked into the party like you were walking onto a yacht. I felt like I was this like douchey kind of like guy walking onto a yacht, so the costume was kind of created this other energy. And then the The fighting was really where I felt most connected to the original Smith. There was certain like punches and certain moves and just like the training and the kind of brutalistic side of that character that Lana wanted to keep in the fighting. So while the scenes were kind of becoming their own thing and Hugo's voice and his like line readings are so iconic and she didn't want to touch that in any way except for like a little nod to it here and there. But then it was more in the fighting where I felt more connected to the kind of Smith that I was familiar with from the earlier films, and that was a whole other aspect of my personality that I had not yet met until this experience.
After all these years, to be going back to where it all started. Back to the Matrix.
I don't think we even really had the formal like, hey,
Hey, how's it
introduction.
going?
I arrived at the gym in LA and Keanu was there and he was pouring sweat and you were jogging and you were singing to yourself. And then I didn't say anything and I just started jogging behind you and that seemed like the right thing to do. We just jogged together for a while.
Yeah. Come on in. Water's fine.
It was great.
It was a similar partner. It was a similar sweaty situation. But I had just got dropped off at our tent in San Francisco.
The tent.
And I came in just to watch. I was just watching that day. Man, you came in and you had on your, is it a jiu-jitsu? Was it a,
Yeah, the gi.
what do you call it, a gi?
Yep.
Yeah, and you had that on, and I said, oh, it's that time. I said, oh, that's how we doing on this, on this. Because I wear my Nike t-shirt and my
Sure.
sweats and things like that, but you
Yeah.
were like,
Ready to
nah,
go.
you were getting down in a different way. I remember I was saying, okay, I got to get those shoes. And Boss Man was like sweaty. He was drenched from head to toe, and he was just working so hard. Sometimes it happens in acting, sometimes it happens in sports or different arenas where you enter into a space with your counterpart, and when they step their game up and you see, and then you can say, oh, that's how we're playing. And then you got to go back and rewrite the rules for yourself. And Cap really set the bar for for what we were going to be doing. And then so when I came, I tried to bring the same attitude and the same work ethic, because that's what I was seeing from the top down.
I remember one of my first days seeing you, Carrie-Anne, was you were jumping off of the containers. You guys were practicing your jumps, and I remember asking, oh, okay, so how high are they going to go eventually? Thinking, oh, 3 shipping containers, 4 shipping containers, and they were like, they're going to jump off the building for real. And I was so blown away. You guys really did set the tone for Believe Succeed.
And hard work. You
Yeah.
all were so incredible.
I mean, I remember I came the first day with Yahya. We showed up together in the van. The gi was on, the sweat was on. It was like, oh my God, this is so for real. And Carrie-Anne was surrounded by like 20 people. You were rehearsing the fight that ended up getting, because of COVID, pushed all the way to the end. But Carrie-Anne was like, ha, 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 and like people were flying all over the place.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yes.
And I
do
was like,
remember that.
whoa, we're gonna be in the Matrix? Like it felt like on the mat was one life and standing outside the other mat was like a different
Yep.
life.
Wow.
Yep.
And we were about to like jump in
Yep.
with you guys, and it was so exciting. And I think I had never done any fighting before in real life, certainly, but also not in acting. And so I took all of my kind of anxiety. It felt like kind of a sink or swim situation where I could either just fully commit and pretend like I could do it, fake it till you make it, because if I thought for a second about what was actually happening, it was not going to work out. So I was riding my bike every day to the set in Berlin to like work out my anxious butterflies in my stomach, and I was training really hard. And then when it finally got to the time when we did the fights, it was like flying. It was so much fun.
You didn't exactly explain why they called you Savage.
Yeah,
You kind of went around the savage
That's true,
part.
you
I
did.
think JoJo started calling me the Savage because I would just go so hard.
Just go.
I was never, because I couldn't do it halfway or else I would feel so self-conscious because it seemed so far outside of my skill set. So it was like that thing of, I'm gonna either do it or I couldn't halfway do it or else I would
I
laugh
remember
at
there was
myself.
some days, Jay, he had this determined look and this tenacity on his face, and it was just it was just like that. It was just all or nothing, and it was always all, like just boom,
Yeah.
boom. But there was sometimes where you would do it like exactly right, and then you back up and kind of be a little bit giddy. You know what I mean? Like you drop the serious face just to kind of show some excitement, and then you get back into the zone and. I was like, God, man, the boy's working.
I saw this in a dream. My dream ended here.
This has been Entertainment Weekly's Around the Table, and we hope that you check out our new movie, Matrix Resurrections. It's opening on December 22nd, and we hope that you love it.